What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with the overall market. I'm going to talk about Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. What's going on with the whole Israel and Iran situation, what's happening with the economic calendar, and when Jerome Powell is going to be giving a speech for tomorrow to impact the markets. But before I break into double this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 of them. And the offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, for the market, I want to break down something very important. I stated to everyone that if the market ended up seeing the Israel conflict end up kind of easing, the conflict between Israel and Iran, if that ended up easing, cooling off a bit, the market should have rebounded, got a nice bounce. But instead, if we ended up getting, some, bad news and, someone else is attacking someone else is accusing someone or threatening to do something even worse, the whole market could have also tanked. So I gave you guys both possibilities. I told you all that at the time I recorded my video yesterday, things were easing off and I was hoping that that would continue. But this morning we got some bad news that the situation is continuing to become more intense because Israel is now responding. So that's very important. That's why the whole market came down because of this. This is very important news. So I just want to say that with both sides, the history between them is, it's very, very long. It's very, very insane. It goes back thousands of years. So I'm not going to talk about the full history. It's absolutely insane. But what I will say is that in the current time, okay, reports were saying that Israel ended up launching an attack which led to the death of two commanders of Iran, but also Israel felt threatened before. So it just goes back and forth and back and forth between each side. But in response to that, Iran has now launched this attack on Israel, a very, very big one. They shot over 300 ballistic and cruise missiles at Israel, not to mention that includes many drones as well. And with that happening, Israel managed to intercept and stop 99% of them. So with that happening, we were all hoping that hopefully that's it. Most of their attacks got intercepted. Both sides would cool off. But instead, this morning, some big news has come out, and that is Israel's war cabinet and their military chief are saying that they want to respond to Israel's weekend missile attack. They voted yes to that, despite the fact that the U.S. is saying it's not going to participate and the U.S. is not going to basically incentivize them to do so. The U.S. is telling Israel to just back off and calm down, and other countries are telling Iran to also calm down, restrain themselves. But instead, that's not what's going on. Both sides are continuing to threaten each other. Both sides have been responding, and now Israel says it wants to respond to Iran, and that's some very, very negative news. Why is this so bad? Because first off, it's war. A lot of these innocent lives are going to get lost. But on top of that, if these countries continue to fight each other, what's going to inevitably happen is I think more countries will get involved. They're going to try to aid one side or another. It could lead to a proxy war. It could lead to so many different things. It's absolutely insane. But my point in talking about all of this, especially because of the fact that each of the countries are going to get funding and supplies and weapons from other countries, and the list goes on about that. What's also going to happen is crude is going to start going up. We're going to start to see gas prices go up. Crude is going to start increasing. And I believe that's going to happen if this does continue. And so far, Israel is threatening to continue this in response to what Iran did, right? And Iran did that in response to what Israel did. And it just goes back and forth forever. So we're not going to worry about where this originated. The end of the day is it's just continuing. So, we all want peace. It's not what we want to hear. So crude is going to likely start increasing very, very soon, especially if Israel launches another counterattack. So with that happening, crude could start going up. This is going to lead to a lot more higher prices. Gas prices will increase, and the price of goods will likely go up as well. With this contributing to U.S. prices going up, this is going to be a little bit negative for the Fed's policies. And then we have Jerome Powell speaking for tomorrow. So all of this is more negative. The market's looking more bearish. SPY has this big gap to fill down here. I'll talk about all these charts in just a couple of minutes. Let me just go over some data real quick and then talk about Jerome Powell's speech. So what's happening with the markets? So amidst this whole situation with Iran and Israel, the situation is very tense, and a lot of different countries are just trying to get involved, trying to restrain the other. And no one really wants this war to just, become much bigger than what it actually is. But so far, there's no sign of it stopping. So the issue now comes with that. So that's what's making the main headlines right now. We have some data coming out for tomorrow that could affect the markets to some extent, maybe to a bit of an extent. So tomorrow's going to be Tuesday, April 16th. Okay, we have all this data coming out. We have manufacturing numbers, we have housing data, and the list goes on. At 9:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time before the market opens, we have industrial production coming out, manufacturing production year over year and month over month. Then at 11:30 a.m., we have the 42-day bill auction, then 52-week bill auction also coming out. So watch and see if we get anything from this. And then finally, that's pretty much it in terms of data. It's mainly just some manufacturing numbers in the morning, then the 42-day and 52-week bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. That could cause some volatility, so watch for that. However, we also have Jerome Powell giving a speech. So another big piece of information that's coming out is at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not too far into the day, Jerome Powell is going to be giving a speech. He's going to be talking a lot about monetary policy. He may even discuss some things involving the whole Israel situation. And on top of this, he's going to be speaking in Washington, D.C., and the governor of the Bank of Canada is going to be there. So, very important news. Whatever Jerome Powell says could affect the whole market. Watch for some crazy volatility tomorrow at 1:15 p.m. When Jerome Powell starts opening his mouth, he could cause some very, very big changes. There's going to be a lot of talk about monetary policy during periods of uncertainty. I'm pretty sure Jerome Powell may address what's happening around the world, and he may even have to do so because of how it could affect the overall market. So we're going to be listening to this very carefully. Jerome Powell might cause a big move tomorrow, so get ready for that for tomorrow. For earnings, we have Bank of America coming out and Morgan Stanley. We'll have to see how they end up doing. I went over all of these earnings in the daytime already. Goldman Sachs did very, very well, beating on guidance and having nice earnings. Charles Schwab's earnings were pretty good, but kind of mixed, and their guidance was mixed, which is why the share price ended up dropping. So that's all I'm seeing, at least for the time being. So don't forget, we have some data coming out. We have Jerome Powell giving a speech at 1:15 p.m. tomorrow. And then what else is going to affect the market the most will be this whole situation. We'll see what happens with Israel. Will they end up responding to Iran's weekend retaliatory attack or not? We'll just have to wait and see. Anyways, the whole situation's tense. Let's talk about how this is affecting the markets. The answer is one word, and it's very, very simple: bearish. The market looks very bearish. It's looking very, very fearful about everything that's going on. And there is a risk of more downside as we have this big gap on SPY to fill at 497. We're also getting very close to filling it as we're at gap support right now. So I do see if we lose this support, we're going to likely fill this gap down to 497. And I see a big risk of that happening very soon over the next week or so. So in terms of levels, individual levels, SPY has resistance at 505, the 507 zone, 510 above that, very close to the 20 EMA. For support, watch 503. If we lose this, watch 500 and then 497 below that. That's where we also have that gap to fill. But overall, I would say that the trend on SPY is on a big downtrend, it's looking a lot more bearish. It might kind of rebound a little bit, just a teeny tiny bit. But then I do see a risk of this dropping more as we're looking very bearish. It also depends on the situation for tomorrow. So look for a little rebound before a potential bearish continuation soon. We'll see what Jerome Powell causes, but just know the chart is still on a downtrend. And I think SPY will fill the gap down to 497 over the next week or so. So you want to give this some time. Look for a little rebound and a continuation down lower. That is the most likely possibility. For Tesla, I'm seeing something very similar. Now, Tesla is going to likely try to see some buyers defend it because we bounced off this 160 area 1, 2, 3, 4 times in the last 2 months. So we're at some key support right now. This does not mean Tesla's going to explode. It might just get a dead cat bounce or like a little response right here back up to 162 to 165. And then we'll see what Tesla does once it's in this range again. Do we get a rejection, establish a lower high, then start sinking down to 157, if not the mid 150s? Or does Tesla try to hold above 165 again? My gut tells me it's going to attempt to kind of push, come back down later, and we'll just have to see how it responds to 160. There's still a risk of more downside because the trend is looking weaker, and we're seeing some weakness developing on this chart because of the overall market. So we want to be very, very careful about that. For the QQQ, it's the same thing essentially. The chart is very bearish, and we have our big gap to fill. Not to mention our important demand zone, that 425 area. So what I would do is I would zoom out a little bit, pull up the daily time frame real quick on the triple Q just to show you guys what I'm talking about. This thing's are already starting to fill its gap. We have this giant gap to fill all the way down to 425. I think the QQQ is going to fill it soon, might rebound a bit, then continue lower. That's what I find to be the most likely possibility on the daily time frame. When you zoom into the chart and you look at the hourly time frame, I'm seeing weakness right here. I'm going to be looking for a retest of about 432, if not 434, could come back to this range. And then I think it's going to continue lower all the way down to 425. That's a very, very good target. And that it kind of aligns with the amount of points that SPY could drop as well. So I'm anticipating more downside on the charts. The charts are looking very weak, so just be careful, guys. I just want to give you guys a very important warning about that for the QQQ. What else is going to contribute is Nvidia. So looking at Nvidia, we're looking pretty weak on our daily as well. The daily on Nvidia is continuing to fall, and we have this gap to fill all the way down here in the 823 area. So to me, it looks like it's going to likely fill that gap before its earnings come out. So I do see a risk of more downside on the chart, especially as it formed a nice double top like structure. I think that it might retest the 870 area and eventually fall to 834. I do see a risk of more downside on Nvidia. I want to give you guys a heads up about that. And I want to give you guys this big warning that the market could see more downside as Nvidia is a big factor that could dictate how these stocks end up moving. So I do anticipate more potential downside. Please be prepared for that. Keep that as a warning. That's going to be very, very key as time goes on. For Aapl, we're looking a little bit more bearish. Going to be looking for a retest of about the 174 area, and then we could continue to sink to our 200 EMA at 171.61. If we lose that, I see a bigger move all the way down to at least 170, if not below that, 168. We're looking like we're forming a distributive structure all the way up here. It's starting to turn. I see the risk of downside on Aapl looking a lot more imminent. So I anticipate more downside as well, as the chart is showing a lot more weakness. So with that being said, guys, the whole market is finally getting the rug pulled. We're getting, a lot more downside, and there's a risk of more of this happening. The whole situation with Israel is playing a big role in this, and this is going to likely affect us tomorrow as well. The market isn't responding positively to this because of how it's going to affect other commodities. Not to mention many other factors such as like trade could be affected by this. So I would say that let's give this time. We'll see what Israel's response is. As of right now, their military saying they're going to be responding to what Iran did over the weekend. We'll see if that ends up being the case. We'll be very, very patient because actions speak louder than words. But for now, just keep your heads up, guys. Let's remain optimistic and let's hope for peace no matter what. Stay strong and just know that it's a very, very tough situation. Anyways, let's talk about a couple more tickers. Yet in my video from yesterday, I said that if we're bearish on Palantir, expect it to fall all the way down to 22, if not 21.88. Instead, we dipped a little bit more. We're at this support right here on Palantir. Gonna be looking for a retest of our support becoming resistance in the 22 area, then a rejection and move all the way back down closer to about the 21 area. So I do see a risk of more downside coming. I want to note that we might kind of like rebound a little bit, retest this support, becoming resistance, and come all the way back down lower as the chart's looking a bit more bearish. So Palantir is looking a little bit weak, and we're going to be watching to see how it continues from here. For Supermicro, there's a nice downtrend right here. We're continuing to fall and fall and fall, and we're continuing to downtrend. When we transition to the 4-hour time frame, you will notice that the chart is barely holding its 200 EMA right here. So it's barely at support, but we're showing a lot of weakness on the 4-hour. I could see this thing retest 895 and then continue to sink lower all the way down to about 857 if we lose 878. So I think that's going to rebound first. It's going to come back down, and we'll have to watch if it loses 879, the 200 EMA. If we lose it, look for a move all the way down to about 857. If we hold it, we could shuffle for a bit, but this chart looks a little bit more bearish. Looks like it could be coming all the way down, if anything. For Rivian, we're looking a bit more bearish. Going to be looking for a move all the way down towards $8 flat. I see a risk of that, so be very careful. Unfortunately, although it wanted to bounce, the whole situation involving the global events is not the best of things, and the market's sinking as a result of it. They're using this as a reason to drop the markets, and Rivian's getting affected too, so I could see it get closer to 8. SoFi is going to be affected by a lot of big bank earnings that come out, so we'll be watching to see what happens as well with this. That's going to be very, very key, at least for the markets and others out there. We have a head and shoulders like structure, could retest 7.2, then make our way all the way down to the full measured move at 7. I think $7 is coming for more downside for SoFi, so just be prepared. The IWM Russell 2000 is also dipping very, very hard off this head and shoulders. The Russell 2000 could retest our 5 EMA, hit 197 or so to 198, then continue to sink all the way down towards 190 or so, if not below that. I see a risk of that at the very least. And let me also call out that on the daily time frame, we have this kind of bearish looking structure that could take us all the way down to our 200 EMA. So there's like a gap to fill down there, taking us down to about 192. So I see a risk of the IWM sinking, and that's very, very probable. So I see that as a strong possibility. Let me just double check this, we have AMD. AMD is looking a little bit more bearish. It's on a very, very strong downtrend. I think that there's a risk of this dipping even more. We could retest the 166 area, then continue to sink even lower, all the way down to fill this gap at 150. So 150 is a real possibility on AMD. Looking a little bit weak right now. I think that it might push up a little bit, retest 162, then continue this downtrend. If we lose 160, watch it come down to 158. And then if that fails us, if 158 fails right here, we're going to continue to sink all the way down to 155 and then 150 flat. So I could see 150 coming. So it looks more bearish. The chart's looking more bearish, could sink more. I want you guys to be prepared for that. Make sure you're very careful as global conflicts emerge. I think on the 4-hour, we're going to see AMD test its 200 EMA. So look for a retest of 124, then a drop all the way down to 119.72. I see a risk of it testing its 200 EMA. So watch for that very, very carefully. That's going to be key for all of us. For Coinbase, we're barely, we saw a big drop even during, I think the after hours is dropping even more. We're at the 200 EMA right now. So look and see if we get some kind of response or not. If we do kind of like bounce a bit, we could retest 230, then reject. If we lose 220, Coinbase could easily start sinking all the way down towards, it could get very, very close to this level right here, this 210 area. And if we lose that, 200 is coming. We look more bearish, but we're at support right now, so we'll have to see how Coinbase responds. Look for a little rebound and see if it continues. If not, but it's looking a bit more bearish. Amazon is just barely at 183. We're barely actually below our 50 EMA. If we lose this support, it could easily come down to about 181. If we hold this, we could rebound to 185. Might retest very close to 185 and then continue lower. If the chart's looking a bit more bearish to me as we have this gap to fill, I could see it sinking closer to 180. Chart looks a bit more bearish on the 4-hour. Meta is also looking a lot more bearish. We're at support around 497. Look for a retest of 500 and a rejection. If we lose that, we could be sinking all the way down to about 490. I see a risk of this dropping pretty big time, so just be careful on Meta. For Microsoft is kind of sinking right now. We're at the 200 EMA at 413. If we rebound a bit, look for a test of about 417, then a rejection all the way back down. If we lose the 200 EMA, we could be sinking all the way down again towards previous resistance becoming support at 409. And if we lose that, I would be looking for a bigger drop from here to 405. So I see a risk of this dropping down below its 200 EMA. Look for Microsoft to attempt to rebound a bit, then continue to sink, and watch it fall even more from here as it's looking a bit more bearish. For Google, we're testing the 50 EMA. We could rebound a little bit, retest like 158, maybe a little bit below 158, then continue to sink. If we lose 155, we're going to be looking for a move all the way down towards 153. And then if that fails us, there's 150 coming. So I see a risk of more downside on Google. And if that ends up failing, we're going to continue to fall as well. So that's going to be very, very key. I see a risk of this dipping. We're at support, so it's not officially dropping yet. Might retest our 20 EMA, then continue lower. But let me just say that watch this support. If we lose this, it's going to be dipping a lot more. So I'll be very careful and give it a little bit more time. The VIX is bullish. It's continuing to break out on this very, very nice uptrend. Could continue to push as we're approaching 20. I think it wants that 20 resistance. It could keep going higher, and that's going to be because of the market potentially sinking more. So just be very careful, guys, and do what's completely necessary. The dollar index is also breaking out. We're above 106. If they keep holding above this and pushing, this would be bearish for the markets. It could come down a little bit, retest 105.8, and then we could bounce after that. So we'll have to give it a little bit more time. But with that being said, that's what I'm seeing it for the markets. So with this potentially testing 105.8, the market could actually bounce just a tiny bit, and then it could, the dollar could start just continuing to soar from here, continuing this breakout, which is the market has a risk of more downside, if anything. So that's what I'm seeing, at least on the charts. There's going to likely be more downside, so just be prepared for that and get ready for what the future holds. With that being said, guys, the whole situation involving Israel is not the best. It's quite, horrendous. And, each of the countries are just trying to, quote unquote, defend themselves, whether you want to agree or not. So with that happening, we'll have to see what develops tomorrow. But as of right now, it's more bearish for the markets. The downtrend is stronger. Look for a little attempt to gap up tomorrow, just like how we kind of did today, and then look for more continuation lower, in my personal opinion. I find that to be a lot more probable. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow morning, and peace out.